Welcome to the AVAIL Podcast, where we dig deep and talk about the art of leadership. My name is Virgil Sierra, your AVAIL Podcast host and lead pastor of Vertical Church, also known as Iglesia Vertical here in South Florida. We are one church, two languages. And today we are sitting down with Pastor Jeff Little. He's pastor of Milestone Church in the Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area. He's an author, and he's a coach who loves to help leaders win in the areas that matter most. In this episode, we're going to discuss his new book, Win with People. So lean in, leaders, and let's get started. Pastor Jeff, it is so exciting to be able to be on this podcast with you to talk about your new book and also allowing our AVAIL audience to get to know you a little bit more. How are you feeling today?
I'm just honored to be here. What a great environment to talk about, just helping and encouraging one another. I mean, just you and I just meeting and already like listening to you share ideas with me. I've been intrigued. I mean, you're supposed to be interviewing me, but I was asking you about bilingual church and your buildings and what you're doing. We need one another. It's just a reality. We're made and designed by God to be better when we're not isolated, and I'm so thankful for all the people in my life along the way. And so whatever I have, I don't believe I have it figured out. I just love to give it away, whatever God's given to me, So The old saying is, you see a turtle on a fence post, it didn't get there by itself.
That's right. That's right. I appreciate your heart, Pastor Jeff. I think our AVAIL audience and all the leaders that kind of lean in here are going to be so blessed by getting to know you and by hearing a little bit more about what God's put on your heart to share with us. Before we jump into the book, tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey and where you're leading at right now.
Well, if you go all the way back, the unique part of my story is that I was raised by first-generation Christians, and so I don't come from like a church or ministry family, but I was called really early and had mentors and others that helped me. And I was the youth pastor at a small church in Central Texas. When I was 21 years old, I was in college at Baylor University, and the pastor decided to get a master's degree in history, and so they didn't have a lot of other available options, obviously. So they made me the temporary interim pastor, which I love to joke when I thought, man, I got a title. Then I realized temporary and interim mean the same thing. They were like, this is really short term. But I ended up pastoring 3 churches and ended up at 2002, 28 years old, moved to the Dallas-Fort Worth area and started Milestone Church with 32 of my friends that sold their businesses, sold their homes, and I'm so indebted and thankful. Most of them are still part of our church today. I'm indebted to them and their belief in building a church that reaches people, builds lives, and part of my passion being to this environment that serves others and has a pastoral heart. And so we have multiple campuses, but I just I love for people to think about it this way. It's not a bigger church, but a bigger heart. The Bible actually says when we each do our part, there's more love. So the church does grow, but it grows with more love. So we've been able to bless hundreds of single moms. We just got through with Christmas with massive toy outreaches. We began to take on food insecurity in Title I schools this last year. We've just seen, not only have we grown bigger as a church, we've gotten a bigger heart for our community, and really the resources and the people, a connected church can really reach out and address major problems, clearing code violations. Back when our city froze and there was no water, we were able to get water, serve our community. I learned in that. Not a lot of people really care a lot about the things that most people argue about in the Christianity world. They didn't even really care how big our church was. They just want to know who had water. Yeah. And so so we just want to have a heart to serve others. And I'm partial, but they taught me in seminary to stay away from the sheep. They bite, But, I still have my best friends and a lot of my staff. We've been together, over 20 plus years. I love our church family.
Yeah.
There's always 3 or 4 that we would give to somebody else, but every family has a few of those. But overall, I just believe there's some of the most genuine, authentic, amazing people. And I'm still, after doing this for 30 years, I still love God, love my wife. Got great children now, a couple of them grown, one in college, and I have an 8th grader. So I live in a wide array. But I have 2 grandkids. My grandson, Samuel, I still say my best title is Papa. So that's a real joy and a new season for me. So for me, I always want to be respected the most by the people who know me the best. So that I've always had more vision for my family than my church. So
yeah, that's good.
I love the season that I'm in. It's a joy.
Yeah, I love that. I'm excited to talk a little bit about your book and also your heart behind it, right? So the book is Win with People, Returning to the Call of a Shepherd. Talk to us a little bit about the heart behind this book and the message in it.
So I moved here at 28 years old and, planting our church and building people and really hadn't done a lot of I've always helped pastors. I've just always had a heart to help them win. But really, I like to say I was busy building a testimony, not sharing one. So I was pretty much nationally unknown and internationally unrecognized when a few years ago I was invited to preach and shared a message on, the passage of Scripture that Peter gives later in life, and says we're to shepherd the flock of God, and do it willingly. And so I shared that, and it's sort of like a lot of people were amazed. I don't know. It's kind of funny how today you can kind of share something pretty basic, and it's kind of novel. I'm not trying to be a critical person, but we can kind of lose our way in all the stuff and lose sight of what's the real motivation and the heart. So I think I'm in this weird place where our church has grown, and that's all a relative term, right? So what's big or how many or whatever, but also still, telling stories like the greatest thing in my life is not the messages I just preached to, thousands of people. I do like to share messages, but I think today the impact you have in the lives of people, because content is so readily available, the personal impacts. I mean, so for me, the 2 stories I've been telling was 2 weeks ago, I did membership class. So I'm standing, shaking hands and meeting people. And I'm always amazed at these amazing people that are coming to our church, because I remember when people were staying away in droves. So I end up with this single mom who I just have kind of a supernatural heart for single moms. My grandmother was a single mom. And so we serve them, we help them with scholarships, we just pour into them at Christmas. And I was amazed to find that they feel unwelcomed in a lot of places, and they really feel like they're unseen, or even more importantly, they shouldn't be there. And she's like, I come here, I feel what a lot of people say about our church is it's friendly, but I say it's really more family, because if you had a troubled home, but you had a friend who had, all of us, there's no perfect family, but where you find that sense of family and warmth. She said, I feel better when I come. And she looked at me and she said, I feel like you care. And I was like, that's an interesting statement. I mean, I think you feel like I care because I do care. And the other thing that really moved me was I preached at our youth service. We had on a Wednesday night here a little while back, we have these big Wednesday nights in the fall. It's regular Wednesday church, but they call it Super Series, where the kids invite their friends. We had a couple of thousand teenagers here on Wednesday. I haven't preached to youth in so long. I was pretty intimidated. My daughter was like, I need to pick your outfit out. So she's in the 8th grade. But, I just shared a simple message. What I realized is young people today have plenty of things that are cute and cool and innovative, but genuineness and being fatherly, caring about them,
so good,
is way more attractive than trying to be cool. And I don't have that gear anyway, so I'm not cool. bald-headed, slightly overweight, middle-aged man. So I just got to go with what I got. And I just loved them like a dad, preached to them like they were my own kids. And I was walking out, and after a whole group of them came to receive Christ, and I was walking out kind of with the mob of kids that were moving to where we had like a ministry area set up. And there was one of the young guys that looked up at me and said, "I don't really know where I'm going. I've never been to church before in my life." This is a high school student. And I said, "Well, let me help you." And his name was Marshall. And I get kind of emotional about it because he was so transformed. Like, he looked at me and he goes, "I feel different." And he had prayed at the altar. And I said, you feel different, Marshall, because you are different. You're a new creation. I took him over to one of our youth team counselors. They helped him. And, he got born again, but then he wanted to come find me a couple of weeks later because he brought his brother to church, and his brother gave his life to Christ. And
wow.
It's still that keeps me going. I mean, a number of people, I'm way past that mattering. A nickel, a nose, those all matter to God because it's stewardship, really.
Sure.
But what really gets me out of bed is Marshall.
Yeah.
Like that kid, he could be like my parents,
right?
Who were lost, who raised me. So he just could change his entire family line.
Right.
And so for me, it's still about the one. It's Marshall. Like, he matters. And obviously, I mean, I have a different role and responsibility as a part of my job. Am I able to pastor every single person? No. But part of the return to the call of a shepherd, or winning with people, when I shared that message, pastors began to tie into this idea that we can have a church that, yes, is reaching people, but has this ethos and culture of we're there to help them grow. Like, our real role is to lay down our life for the sheep.
Right.
Where the tragedy is in the Bible is it says, when the wolf comes, if the hireling is watching them, they run. And I find that we have way too many hired hands and not enough shepherds.
That's good, Pastor Jeff. I love what you're sharing, because I think there's like you said, it might be a message that is it's not wow revolutionary. It's just the basic. By the way, don't sell yourself short, because some of us think you're cool, even though all the students don't. What are some drawbacks? Going back to kind of some of the themes in your book, what are some drawbacks of being labeled shepherd?
Yeah. So by the way, like the resource, I mean, again, I wrote a book years ago about identity, and it was more to like serve, and it's called Who Am I? And it's like, it's really more of a message, but the Win with People book here is really to solve a problem, right? And that is, if I, as a pastor, which I'm doing staff meeting tomorrow, again, I'm a pastor, I'm doing a staff meeting. I'll be with our team.
Yeah.
And we're going to celebrate what God did, and we're going to do a little coaching and encouragement and all of that. But I know this, if I can serve them and I can help them be healthy as possible, the way I serve them is the way they'll serve the people. So the problem that we're trying to solve is, how does a pastor, a department head, a group of interns, some of these colleges, what do you do with that group of people to help equip them to be more effective at shepherd, right? And Peter says to us, shepherd the flock of God. He didn't give the category of influencer, superstar, that wasn't a category in the Bible. I'm not saying it's wrong to utilize, I want to qualify. I have social media. I'm on a podcast with you. Yeah. But I'm talking about, that can't be the primary lens that I look through. Even preacher, right? Obviously there's the proclamation of the gospel, but the call is to shepherd. And so the resource that I'm doing is also going to have with it the ability to equip that pastor or that department head or that professor to train a generation of Christian leaders who I think we have way more access to the what more than we ever have. There's so much content about what and what to do, but what about the who? What about the culture that they experience? Because we all know they don't remember what we said. You're a pastor.
Yeah.
You spend like 25 hours preparing your message, and then you walk out and they go, man, I really love that story about your dog. You're like, man, I had some deep revelation in there, man. But I tell you this, they feel that pastor's heart if they know you care about them.
That's right.
You want the best for them. And I think some of the drawbacks to it, and this was my original thesis, okay? Church growth was not a thing, of course, my kids think about the 80s like I thought about the 40s, which really makes you feel weird. Are you with me?
Yep.
But it wasn't until, this is a fairly recent 70s, 80s, right? Like phenomenon, church growth, right? So you have McGavern and Schaller and these different writers, and you start having these classes at Fuller Seminary or wherever, or you have now resources available to pastors where we want to help your church grow. And I'm all about helping churches be more effective at reaching people. Heaven's a real place. Hell's a real place, and eternity's a long time. So this is not a game. It matters for eternity. But what then happened was you have this generation of pastors who want church growth, and they heard this phrase: if you want your church to grow, you got to be a rancher, not a shepherd. And then what happened was, in my opinion, we raised a generation of pastors who want to be ranchers, but they don't know anything about sheep.
Right.
And the Bible's a sheep book, by the way.
Right.
I mean, a lot of the main characters were shepherds. Moses, all these guys, they had flocks, right? Like David was trained to be king.
Yep.
As a shepherd.
That's right.
And I think some of the drawbacks is people make it one-dimensional. Oh, that's just for the pastoral care department. Thank God for the pastoral care department. I mean, we need them. Let me just tell you something. People are not as wowed by our innovative, exhortation of some concept. I'm going to tell you right now, though, I believe a big distinguisher for churches is that you're there in people's pain.
Yes.
They'll never forget you if you serve them and help them at their lowest moments. And I tell our church that all the time. It gets me emotional. Thank you for the way you take care of people. Take care of each other. You love each other. That's what any dad wants, right? Is for the kids to love each other and take care of each other. That's what our Father wants for us. But what I think is people hear shepherd and think, oh, that's just one niche gift. When really shepherd is multidimensional. I'm currently working and finishing. I have just a little bit left on the resource, so I've been deep in it the last couple of weeks. Saw something interesting. David, when he killed the lion and the bear, this was not long-range sniping. He grabbed them by the hair, right? He was close enough not only to the sheep, but to the threat to the sheep to grab the threat by the hair. This is much more than just, Jesus had a lamb around his neck. Right? He is our good shepherd, by the way. And shepherds need shepherds. We need Jesus, our good shepherd. We need Psalms, the famous one that even lost people know, right? He leads us to these places as the shepherd. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. Right. And we need that. But I think one of the big hangups for a lot of people is they're like, oh, that's like one personality. Actually, shepherds, the larger the flock is, needed a team of shepherds. They were able to protect against the sheep. They were able to lead the sheep to the right places. So guess what? Shepherds have leadership navigation ability. And I actually believe that when pastors begin to see, actually, the ethos of taking care of people could lead to better team building. One of the chapters I focus the most on is, I actually think leadership is the word of the day. I mean, obviously, I have an organization that helps pastors and leaders called Lead to Win. Leadership is in the Bible. The concept is more than the word. But I do think we overemphasize leadership. If you ask your people, they want to know somebody's navigating the ship. That yes, they subconsciously want a leader. But you know what they really want? A pastor.
Yeah.
If you ask your people, they don't go, I am looking for a great leader.
Right.
And you tell them, hey, I have somebody that cares about you, wants to make sure you're taken care of, protects you, resources you. They'll be like, hey, I think I'm into pastor. By the way, you trade in your leader at some point and your teacher. And once you're going to heaven, you don't need your evangelist, but you're not trading in your pastor.
I like that. I have a question for you, Pastor Jeff, especially because I know that you love serving and helping pastors. In your experience, what do you find that pastors want or need help with the most?
So I think we, like I said, we have this leadtowin.com. We do three things. We gather leaders. So in January every year, anyone listening today that would like to come, it's free. It's a grow your church, and it's plays. I tell people all the time, we don't have it figured out. We're learning. I was learning from you today, right? Like we're all learning. It's just about giving away what you have. But I think you go to certain environments we all are sharing a lot of same plays, but you're really wanting to go tap into that cultural dynamic impartation more than information.
Right.
And so we gather leaders. January, love to invite anyone who wants to come to that. We do some coaching and then we resource. So I've found these areas that pastors need help with, and it's like, could I resource you with these things? And really they all fall under two main categories. One is I need space. So what is my strategy? You and I were talking about that for Vertical Church.
Yeah.
You guys are working on. So how does that work? Like how do we get more room? And how you do that, in my opinion, there's an unhealthy way to do it and a healthy way. We like to say we're an everyone church. It's everyone doing their part. So you don't just need bigger space, you need bigger people.
Yeah.
And I go back to the pastor message. If you build big people, they build big things for the kingdom. So everybody goes, how'd you get a big church? I'm like, well, we were in a cafetorium. Nothing bigger, flashy, or nice about that. We had a lease building. We had a grocery store behind Taco Casa. That's the house of the taco. And then people come now and be like, well, my gosh, I could do it with, but look, I've pastored in a furniture store, phone companies, all kinds of environments. And yes, buildings help, but really buildings, people go, why is it about, it's not about buildings, but the sheep need a barn.
Right.
But it's if you're building big people that are building these things for the kingdom. So I find it's space, but my number one area I love to hone in on is team. So, people come and say, where did you get these worship leaders? Well, Betsy's like my sister. She moved here with us to plant the church. Blake Campbell came here when he was 19 years old. I'm a father figure to him. Kendall came here at 16. It was like, we have 10 worship leaders, and so 12, 15. People go, can you give me one? I'm like, no, I got plans for it,
That's right.
And I always love to joke with pastors and go, you haven't heard? There's a place called worshipleader.com. You type all your info in and they Amazon you a worship leader. And I'm like, and I realize there's companies out there that do some of these things, but quite honestly, like at its very essence, like if we'll develop, build into people, I always love to tell a pastor, the resources for the building and the next leader to lead in your environments are many times in your house waiting to be discovered. The miracle's in the house. So, we have for our kids' church, the motto is you don't have to wait to be great, you can be a great kid. I tell people, if you're like, man, I'd like to know more about Milestone Church, I tell them, go to Labor Day weekend. We call it Next Gen Weekend, and it's more than kids passing out bulletins. It's all the next generation leading, because we don't believe there's a junior Holy Spirit.
Right.
And I think a lot of pastors, if you really were to say, what's my big challenge? I need some more space, but also who's going to help me? We're really a people business, right? So a lot of our budget is for staff who then they need to take care of people. And so it's how do I get those team members? So I spend a lot of time coaching pastors on culture.
Yeah.
Ezekiel 37 is about an army that were bones, and then the breath filled the bones. The Bible talks about wine and wineskin. The Bible talks about living stones coming together as a spiritual house that God fills. So some churches have bones with no breath, and that's real dry. They do all the right things, but it's performance oriented and people feel the plasticness of it. Then you have other environments a lot of times that's all breath with no bones, and it's a lot of hot air. And I think when you marry the cultural ethos of love for God, the presence of God, but caring for the people of God, but you also are still moving toward an effective purpose, because the body of Christ in Scripture has to do with effectiveness too. It's like shin bone, knee bone. You know, like it's all about that body.
Yep.
Growing up and functioning. So there's a functional side to this thing we do. So I'm always trying to usually help people, pastors, a lot of times with some bones, some plays, or most of the time I find it's more culture.
Yeah.
It's culture things.
Yeah, it's huge. That's huge, especially as a church that wants to be relevant in the community, that wants to be truly making a difference and impacting. I think that's huge. And you know, as a pastor of a church that's growing, and you know, in a season of you know, great possibilities, I've seen how important both of those are, but really the importance of establishing a solid culture. Going back to the theme in your book, Pastor Jeff, why do you think pastors often don't grow past the role of a shepherd? In other words, what are some of the barriers that impede a pastor from becoming a rancher, in a good sense?
Yeah. Well, number one, I don't necessarily believe that the end goal is that everybody has to be a rancher. But if they're listening to this podcast, they're probably thinking, "Man, I'd kind of like to try." Right? So, I mean, if you why would you listen to things get better? You want to grow the kingdom, right? And the Bible is not against the growth of the kingdom. But I think what impedes a lot of guys or girls or shepherd-oriented people are trying to help. It's really the mindset, right? So if rancher is the goal, a lot in the Bible is not just about what you do, but the motive by which you do it. And I look through a stewardship lens. So when I look at Genesis, all right, you've been given the garden, take care of it, keep it, till it, right? So Matthew 25, hey, here's these talents, take care of them. So I think one of the biggest things in our world today is the lack of the stewardship mindset and the understanding of how God's kingdom works. I'm going to take such good care of these sheep with the right motive.
Right.
You know, the Bible does say in that passage, shepherd the flock of God, do it willingly.
Right.
Not for dishonest gain.
Right.
I think the sheep can tell if you're doing it willingly.
That's true.
They can really tell, hey, is this about them or is this about helping me become? I use the phrase, the shepherds obviously need to know the state of their flocks. That's a verse. And that actually means to be able to look in their face, right? You know where they're at. But also, a shepherd smells like sheep, so he's with them. The other thing is you want more for them than you want from them. The shepherd is not going to have a good herd if his main goal is to shear them, milk them, eat them. Those things can happen, but at the end of the day, he's only a good shepherd based on the health of the flock.
Right.
So if I've been given some sheep, I've been given a garden, so to speak. I've been given some talents. I see that as the message of the Bible. I like to tell people I'm just a local church, small town guy who just kept taking steps and being faithful with God's sheep, and looked up and there was more of them because they just kept multiplying.
That's right.
And I think if your goal is to be a rancher, you probably might end up short on that goal if that's your main motive. I always tell my team we're doing it for Jesus, right? The passage also says this: when the chief shepherd appears, he's going to reward you for how you took care of his sheep. They're not our sheep. We're taking care of them for Jesus, right? And I think if your motive is, I want more for you than I want from you, I make our people the heroes, because they are the heroes. Like they're the ones. It's my job to equip them for the work of ministry.
Right.
I think if you're just like, man, I'm going to be faithful with these sheep I have, and I'm going to grow that. I'm going to grow Blake Campbell at 19 when no one's looking. We're behind Taco Casa. I'm going to grow them. I'm going to grow Kendall, grow these people. And then I look up and I got 15 worship leaders. I know this could sound harsh, but a lot of times I'm looking at a guy going, why would I give you a worship leader to mismanage like you have all the other ones you have?
Ouch.
Take care of what you have.
Yep.
That's the number one, my deal. I'm not living for, I got this many people, I got this many people. I'm living for one day, well done, good and faithful servant. The chief shepherd has appeared, and I want you to know you stewarded my sheep well. Thank you for taking care of them. The other thing I think that hurts a lot of guys today is we didn't used to know what everybody else had.
Right.
And I was in a furniture store in Chico, Texas. Nobody even knows where that is. I was 23 years old, pastoring them people. I thought I was the greatest pastor in the world, man. But I didn't have Instagram to go home to and look at and feel like a failure because somebody, we had, 7 billion people at Christmas. So, I mean, I also like to tell people this, like a shepherd's heart is, we're living it today, Like, I don't know if you ever get to rancher or even know you are a rancher if you don't have hey man, this is a joy today.
Right.
Like I love these 10 sheep as much as I love these 1,000 sheep.
Mm-hmm.
I remember back in the day, I was like, I'm gonna serve these people like they're the biggest, best group of people there ever was. And then you kind of look up one day, and you got more sheep.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Stewardship mindset.
Yeah, Pastor Jeff, I want to help a lot of pastors and ministry leaders that are leaning in right now. How can they connect with you? How can they find out more about Lead to Win and about the resources that you're preparing specifically for pastors? And obviously, where can they get the book?
Yeah, leadtowin.com, and you'll see this spring that we're going to be taking pre-release. We'll put some of that as well here on the podcast. And leadtowin.com, as I said, I'd love to have anybody listening come to our January gathering here at Milestone Church in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. You'll see the dates for that. You can even begin to pre-register for that coming up, and that would be your best way to really come connect with, hey, I want to build an effective church, but I actually want to build a church I want to go to.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys don't know that that's possible. It's like,
yes.
I could marry, I think a lot of times we trade, big means unhealthy, or,
right.
What if you could marry this together? That gathering's the best place. You can look on leadtowin.com for some of that, and then resourcing. We're consistently developing resources like this Win with People resource.
Yep.
And I would challenge any pastor out there, a department head or youth pastor, take your team through this book, because if they see you building them into being better shepherds, they're going to take care of the sheep, and the sheep will multiply. Yeah. Because they flourish and multiply in healthy environments. And so I would challenge anybody listening, you should do this with your team.
I love this. And pastors, leaders, if you're listening right now, you need to go check out leadtowin.com. I suggest you not only buy a book for yourself, but I think you should probably grab some for your staff team, or if you have some high-level volunteers, people that you want to walk through with, this could be a great resource to add to your leadership, to your ministry. Leadtowin.com. I love that you're mentioning about the January gathering, because no matter when somebody listens to this, they can have that already kind of in their calendar, mindset, kick off the year with some growth, some encouragement, some resources. I love it, Pastor Jeff. I love that we're able to offer this to so many leaders and pastors that are out there. And of course, everybody, when you take steps and grow in your leadership, you're gonna see that multiply in your leaders as well. I want to mention the AVAIL Journal. Pastor Jeff, you've been a contributor on the AVAIL Journal. We think it's one of the best Christian leadership resources out there. If you don't have it yet, everybody, you can try our free trial subscription. Go to availjournal.com and check it out. I think it's a well-worthy read.
It's fantastic. In the recent issue, like what we're talking about here, I write about that. If they wanted to go get it, they could see a lot more of the discussion that I had with my wife and others in there about this culture of shepherding people. Yeah, it's so good. Yeah.
Pastor Jeff, what is a final word of encouragement you want to leave with our leaders and pastors?
I think I want to go back to that idea again, doing this for 30 years. I still can't believe, I mean, we're all we're all paper plates, right? Like we're all temporary leaders here. I mean, I'm just thankful for the privilege to serve the people that I get to serve now. I don't feel entitled to the position. I'm just grateful God but I still think, you get to a point, it's like, where do you get your sustainability? I just want to invite a pastor back there or here to this place that maybe they're thinking about quitting. Maybe they've had some struggles, and I want to just bring us back to that original call, right? Like, why are we doing this? Not to have more followers, and I'm not against the growth. I want to qualify that, but I'm talking about getting back to that simple devotion.
Yeah.
When the chief shepherd appears, he's going to reward you. Make no mistake. He sees every contribution, and he smiles when we love his people.
Yeah.
And take care of them. And I want to just encourage somebody who's like, man, our church has got this many people, and I feel like we should have this many. And I get it. I get it. Like, we're all. I was in staff meeting today, like with my executive team, trying to find space because we had people in the commons and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
Like, that's real life. But I know this. I can't sustain motivation to start another service, to do another podcast. I can't sustain motivation. I can sustain motivation for Jesus. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me. Today, what motivates me is, even this recent time we were serving pastors.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it. I felt like Jesus was like, thank you for loving these people. Like that when I was a young pastor, that's the number one thing I would hear. My messages weren't that great. And I a lot of times felt like I was failing because I didn't have that great a church. But I would consistently hear Jesus say, Jeff, just make sure that they know I love them. Because that's the highest motivation. You do what you love. And so I'd like to return maybe a pastor out there back to the simplicity of, hey, don't get all caught up in comparison and
That's good.
statistics too much. Just find somebody to love this week, and it'll rejuvenate why we do this in the first place. The chief shepherd is going to appear one day, and every pastor listening to this podcast, he's going to say, thank you for taking care of what I love.
So good. So good. Hey, everybody, the book is Win with People, Returning to the Call of a Shepherd. He is Pastor Jeff Little. The website is leadtowin.com. So many resources that are available there. You want to check it out and check it out with your team as well. Pastor Jeff, what an honor it is to be able to hear from you, spend some time with you. I'm happy that our AVAIL leaders are getting to know you. On behalf of our co-founders, Dr. Sam Chand, Martijn van Tilborg, and our whole AVAIL team, we want to say we're thankful for your life. We honor you for your leadership and your generosity in that leadership, wanting to spread it out. And we're excited to see how more people get encouraged by your book.
I'm so excited to be on here. Dr. Sam Chand has been an encouragement to me along the way. He's been one of those who's blown wind in my sails, and love him. And I'm thankful for what you do to keep our shepherds encouraged, because if you strike the shepherd, the sheep scatter. So maybe some small way today, we strengthen those shepherds to take care of Jesus' sheep.
Yes, sir. That's our heart. Thank you so much, Pastor Jeff. And thank you for joining us for this episode of the AVAIL Podcast. For more leadership resources, check us out at theartofleadership.com, and make sure to claim your free trial subscription of the AVAIL Journal at availjournal.com. As always, I'm your AVAIL Podcast host, Virgil Sierra. Muchas gracias. Thank you for connecting with us to learn the art of leadership here at the AVAIL Podcast.